Welcome to a special edition of Raised Bees. I'm your host, the Little Beekeeper. In this episode, my dad is going to talk about a way to convert medium frames to use in a deep brood box. He didn't have much luck online finding ideas on how to do this, so we wanted to share an idea we had.
So you may have noticed that we use all medium frames for our beehives. That helps with using common frames for both honey supers and the brood chambers. I've decided to try to go to deep brood chambers. It's about 33% less frames you have to pull out for inspection because I use 3 mediums for my brood chamber instead of 2 deeps. So I'm going to start converting a couple of my hives to deeps. And one of the concerns I had was, how do I take frames that already have resource and drawn comb and give those to the deep boxes? You don't want the bees to naturally draw comb. If you leave them room down here, they could draw some crazy comb of different shapes and directions that you don't want. They can also attach the comb to the sidewalls of the brood chamber. So the whole point of these wooden frames is to keep the bees from building comb outside of the frame, because the sidewalls of the box or the bottom of the box is very close and they won't build that comb. So my fear is, if I put this frame into a box that's made for a frame that's this deep, they'll draw a wild comb down here. So the idea we had, my wife actually came up with the idea, is take some spare parts. I've got some bottom board of a frame, standard frame, and these are sideboards of a medium frame that I just cut to length. So by the time I take this length plus the length of this, it equals the deep frame. And what we did was just drilled some holes and put some finish nails, very small finish nails, almost like tacks, into here. And what that'll allow me to do is take a frame and just push this extension. And you'll notice I put the tacks off-centered a little bit because I put staples right in the middle of these bottom boards, and then I'm not pushing into a staple. But I'm going to take this frame. Actually, I forgot one step. First, what I want to do is take this piece of foundation that I cut to the proper width to give them something to start on for this extension. And I'm going to use these little foundation clips that get pushed into the side bars of the frame to help hold this wax up while the bees connect it the rest of the way. Because the bees will take this wax that's loose and they'll eventually draw it out and connect it to the sides and to the bottom of the old frame. So I'm going to take this extension, just going to kind of eyeball it, get it pretty close, and push down. And those sharp nails, tacks, get driven right into the bottom board. And now I have a frame that is basically a deep frame converted from a medium frame. You'll see the size is the same. The height is exactly the same. So I can take this frame that could potentially, my goal is actually to do this while I'm at the beehive, having bees all over this with brood and eggs and resources, and be able to quickly attach one of these. I made about a dozen of these extensions, and I can quickly attach that and then drop it into a deep box. And now I have a deep frame made from a medium frame. And then eventually, over the next couple of years, I'll cycle these out and get rid of them and replace them with deep frames. Here's some close-up views. Again, I just used, this is a finish nail that I happen to have a bunch of. I drilled a hole in this side frame piece, and I put a little bit of glue in there, a little bit of wood glue, just to hold that finish nail in. So I drove it nail head first, so the sharp tip of the finish nail is sticking up. And again, you'll see I offset it, because the bottom of my frames, I always drive a staple into the bottom to hold the bottom frame. And with these being offset, it'll miss, this tack will always miss my staple when I'm pushing the 2 frames together. So you do sacrifice some parts. You do sacrifice a bottom board, and these are the leftover scrap pieces of the sideboards of the medium frames as they were. So I just chopped those, measured what the length of this needed to be, cut a bunch of them, and there's my extension. So I'm going to do another frame here to put into a deep hive box. This is a frame of honey. I had a hive that didn't make it through the winter, and when I went into that hive early this spring or late this winter of 2020, there was quite a few frames of wax. So they didn't starve, they just absconded. I don't know if the queen died and they left. No sign of foul brood or anything like that. I've never had any foul brood in my apiary. So this frame, even though it's perfectly good honey, it was in the brood chamber, so I'm not going to use it to extract for my own consumption or to sell to people, because it has been exposed potentially to apivar, and it may have some sugar water in it as well. So I'm going to feed this back to the bees, and what I'm going to do is push these pieces together like I did before. Just push down, drive that tack. It's a little off.
I think that burr comb's going to be in the way
as well. In this burr comb, I did cut these a little short, so there's a little room for a little burr comb, and if it squishes it a little bit, I'm not worried about it. I can kind of straighten it out. There we go. Kind of just straighten it out, and there we go. Apparently this one isn't driving in properly. There we go. On this side, it was kind of going in between a glue joint, so I moved it over a little bit. So perfectly good. That's not going anywhere. And again, very quickly, the bees will brace these two pieces together and make it stronger and push this and secure this comb to this bottom board of the original medium. So there we go. We have another frame ready to put into a deep box.